We really want to know, what's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you as a dentist? Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Wright.
And I'm Dr. Ioannidou, and this is Dental Sound Bites. Today we will be talking about awkward, strange, and very sticky situations in the dental office.
From the American Dental Association, this is Dental Sound Bites, created for dentists by dentists. Ready? Let's dive right into real talk on dentistry's daily wins and sticky situations.
Back in season 1, we got a great idea from a fellow dentist and a listener to do a show on dentistry's tough, odd, and awkward situations. It was such a fun and interesting show. We couldn't get enough.
We are diving back to our stories and we try to understand how to stay professional, how to stay compassionate in the face of the most challenging situations.
We are super duper excited to welcome to Dental Soundbites Dr. Steph Ganter and Dr. Bobby McNeill, who are both dentists, motorbike aficionados, and hosts of the podcast Between Two Teeth. Welcome, guys.
We are so excited to be here.
So excited.
We are so excited to have you here.
Tell us more about yourselves, your work, and your YouTube channel.
We have a YouTube channel, Between Two Teeth. And Steph, what are we about?
So maybe 6 to 12 months ago, we started looking at purpose and direction, and we kind of came up with a purpose statement kind of for our show. And it's to connect, discover, and inspire. We want to connect with as many people as possible, discover things about the world, about experiences and stories, and then ultimately inspire ourselves and hopefully, if we're lucky enough, inspire someone else just to do the most good in the world.
Yes. And we want to live our best lives and we want to push others to live their best lives too. So That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
I love that. Don't you?
It sounds very inspiring. I'm very inspired
right?
already.
And we haven't even gotten started.
Yes, it's working.
Yes, it's working. I can't wait to get started. Should I start with sharing my awkward, weird story? I have so many. I have to pick one.
Same. Yeah. Let's hear it. Let's jump right in.
So, obviously you can tell that I don't have any accent, right? I speak like, clearly this is a Connecticut accent. I have been a faculty at UConn Dental for more than 20 years, actually, to this day. And last year, like 19 years into the job, right? I was going to check on some type of scaling root planing after the students completed the procedure, and I sat by the patient. I started giving some additional oral hygiene instructions, how you can brush your back, your interproximal areas between your molars, blah, blah, blah. And the patient turns to the student and say, "Can you bring a faculty that really speaks English?"
Oh, wow.
Yikes.
It was super surprising to me. I was really shocked and I really didn't know. It caught me into oh my God, I'm like, what am... Yeah. So I walked out of the room. I gave some space to the patient. I think it was a bad moment. I returned a few minutes later and she apologized. Everything was back to normal. But that really few seconds when she turned and hit me with this, it was like, oh my God.
Wow.
Such a weird and awkward situation that can very easily turn to become confrontational, right? But by walking out and giving her a minute to kind of think what she just said. And I think the student also turned to the patient and said, I don't think this was a very right comment to make. So she rethought what she said and everything turned out to become a very nice and happy ending in the story, but it was a very, very awkward situation.
I think one of the smartest things you did was to walk away and give that time.
Yeah.
In my MBA program, we learned about the concept of amygdala hijacking. And when something happens and emotions get high,
sure,
realistically, both sides are really having a hard time thinking logically about things. You step aside, you let the endogenous epinephrine and norepinephrine, everything kind of settle down, and then you go back in and have a reasonable conversation.
Yeah, because, if you become defensive, this can turn very ugly. So I really didn't want to create a scene out of this. And I have to say that it has to also do with the levels of insecurity. If you are comfortable in your skin, whatever they say, let them, it's fine. Let's turn the page, move on.
Correct.
And we often see people at a bad time in their lives. They're in a spot where they don't want to see us. You're a periodontist, I'm an oral surgeon. They don't want to be in our office, and it's stressful for them.
And just kind of listening to your story, oh my goodness, I can't imagine the mix of emotions that were probably going through your head at that very moment.
Yeah.
For me, I think I would be angry and just frustrated because they're picking on a part of you that you didn't wake up this morning and say, okay, I'm going to make this more difficult for this patient. You are authentically being you, and you're there, you're showing up, and you're showing up in the best version of yourself.
Right.
And you're trying to help somebody, let alone be a mentor and a role model for the dental student. All of that's frustrating.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, it's sad because had this happened 25 years ago, society was different. We have evolved so much and we are so open.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Diversity has really become a central piece of our lives in higher education even more, right? So it was very, very weird to me.
Right.
In 19 years into this job, I have never ever experienced something like this. And I think it was a bad moment. And you're absolutely right, Bob.
And so you were able to just kind of like recover really quickly, huh?
Yeah, no, I do recover quickly. Yeah.
Like imagine if you had been super easily offended type of person, you would have like dragged that entire situation on way longer, and then nobody would have accomplished what they came into the school for that day.
For sure.
Arnell, I love what you just brought up as far as how long does this affect you? For me, when I'm in the clinic and we have certain situations that are emotionally charged,
right?
Sure, we can get back at it superficially and say, okay, that happened. We're going to move on. We're going to get through this procedure this day. But the tough part is people that tend to suffer in silence later on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or how many times it replayed in your head. You know what I mean?
Yes.
See, exactly. I love to pivot.
Exactly.
I compartmentalize everything. I put it in a little box and then I turn. And then I'm on to the next.
Man,
and that served me
I'm so happy
well.
for you.
That has served me well, and that has served me poorly at other times as well.
I'm so happy. Yeah, that's a superpower.
Yeah, definitely a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Yes.
Like all in one.
Oh my.
Well, Dr. McNeill, what's your tale from the operatory that you're willing to share?
As I looked at some of these clinical situations, my very first interaction with a patient in dental school, I almost passed out. That was a weird situation. But then I said, no, that's not enough. And then I went to, when I was taking my board examination, I had to use a backup patient. That patient ripped off the rubber dam. I failed the exam.
Oh my gosh.
Now I'm a board examiner with the examination. And part of that was just don't let failure stop you. But then I thought about it and I said, realistically, the message that was tough for me, I got to a point in my life in 2017 where I was appointed by the governor to the state dental board. Professionally, I was on my peak, but personally, I had a hard time going into the office each day. I was burned out. I had a marriage that was not working out, and it was super duper tough. And I talked to my staff. I was not the person I wanted to be just in the office. And I said to them, I'm having some challenges. I had a group of friends around me that was a group of dentists that kind of helped me. And I just sat down with them and I said, man, I am burned out. And I felt somewhat like a fraud or a failure because professionally I was like way up here. And then personally, the other stuff wasn't working out and it wasn't fun going to the office. And I didn't want to be in that spot. And that's part of probably why I do what I do now.
Yeah.
I think that's in part why, the ADA Wellness Initiative has such a pull to me because I've been in a spot that I think so many are. And I was so fortunate and blessed to have people. I had a group. I had connections. I was able to kind of open up to appropriate people to help me out. Right. And I that was sticky because it could have gone different directions. And certainly as a state board regulator, I'm still on the state board and I see challenges where people don't get the help they need.
Wow.
I have a question for you. Like while we're on this topic, imagine had you not been able to identify that you were burnt out. Like I think that a lot of people, they postpone or they don't get the help that they need because one, they can't identify it, or maybe they are like all of us here. We're very well educated. We're very successful in our careers, in our lives, and we may turn a blind eye to it. Can you what's your thoughts about that?
Well, I love to control things. things. Just ask Steph. She will say that.
True
And you look at
probably
it and
all
say,
of us.
you say,
True
well,
story.
I'm a hardworking dentist, and being in practice is very difficult, and this is just the way it's supposed to be. And you just show up day after day after day, and you don't realize there's got to be something better.
Right.
And on that note, and thank you for sharing that.
Oh,
It's actually, I mean, we talk about vulnerability, authenticity a lot on our show, and it's easy to talk about. It's really tough to share your personal story. One of the things that I think about when I hear you tell that story is that this concept, this notion that we have to show up on our strong horse every day. We have to be that knight in shining armor for our patients, for our families, for our friends. And the truth of it is, that's not where connection lies. That's not where wellness lies. Wellness lies in the cracks. Wellness lies where we are authentically burned out and saying, hey, it's almost like it's okay not to be okay.
It is okay not to be okay.
Agree.
But I think very frequently we are, we kind of walk the thin line in this dilemma between the high responsibilities that we carry
Yes.
in our professional life and then, the vulnerabilities, the moments that we are like, we really want to sit down and take a breath. And many times in many minds, those two cannot reconcile. It's really hard to. So I definitely give you a lot of credit for sharing with us, first of all, and also going through this experience. That's not an easy experience.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, it's made me a better board member. I think I've just gotten more involved with the ADA Wellness Initiative, and I think it'll help me from that component. We also talk about, we're driven individuals as dentists, but you really have to be intentional in how you recharge.
So not only are we talking about sticky situations, we have also incorporated a little bit of wellness, resiliency, mental health into this episode. I love the direction that this has gone in.
So, Dr. Ganter, what's your story?
Oh, buddy, buckle up. So,
Save on credit card processing fees with Best Card, endorsed by ADA Member Advantage. Submit your latest credit card processing statement at bestcardteam.com/ADA for a free statement analysis to learn how much your practice could save.
We'll let you in on a secret. When you listen to Dental Soundbites on the ADA Member app, you'll find exclusive content with more stories, more tips, more fun. Download in the App Store, Google Play, or visit ada.org/app.
So I got married when I was in residency and probably too young for me. And I got a divorce right when I was getting out. The challenge is with that, your name, right when I had graduated. So when I started my first job, my name was Dr. Briggs. And so all my patients knew me as Dr. Briggs for that first 6-month period. And then it changed to Dr. Ganter once the paperwork went through. So unfortunately, I got a lot of congratulations when that happened. So I would go in and I would say, oh, hi, Mrs. Jones. How are you doing today? And she goes, oh my goodness, congratulations to you. How was the wedding?
Oh, God.
Tell me all about it. And inside I was like, oh, what? Do I break it to her? Is this something that I need to go into right now? My staff's kind of, like, oh, I don't know how you're going to handle this one. And so, of course, I'm just like, it was great. But then, you have the little old lady that's going, oh, no, tell me more and more about it. And at some point, you got to say, hey, it was actually the other way. Sorry about that. And she was just like, oh, no. Part of the reason I bring that up is that, one, we talked about failure earlier. Failure is a part of life. Embrace it. If you haven't been touched by it yet, it's coming. I promise you that. And for me, with this story specifically, I was a little angry about how this is part of the way the world works. For women, they have a choice to change their name when they get married.
Or not.
Or not. They have a choice.
Or carry this nightmare of a last name, but with conviction. I said, I will never change my name. This is who I am. Whatever. I said, no way. This name, the 3 vowels, will follow me for life.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic.
I didn't change my name either, actually. Wright is my maiden name.
I love that. And I have several colleagues that have never changed their name, but I also have several colleagues that have changed their name.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own reasons for or for not doing it.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring it up is because it's kind of crazy, because if you do change your name and you're trying to, for whatever reason you're doing it for, you're kind of exposed if you go back the other way.
Yes.
It's almost a red letter A when you're walking around. Yeah. I've had reps too say, "Oh my gosh, congratulations." And I'm like, "Oh gosh." I don't know why it's the congratulations and no one thinks, "Hey, maybe it's the other way."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's my first sticky situation. I want to kind of segue into one that's a little bit more close to home for me. And it happened a little bit more recently. So when we're in a lot of our procedures, we're doing them under IV sedation, and I'll have the patient will kind of stretch out their arm, and a lot of times our chairs, they don't get over far enough. So I'll have the patient rest their arm on my leg so I can start the IV. A pretty standard setup, and their palm is facing up. This one gentleman decided to, once the back of his hand was touching my leg, this guy decided to turn his hand over and actually grab my leg. And then he had a very sexually suggestive comment right afterwards. I froze. They talk about fight, flight, or freeze.
Right.
I really didn't know what to say. I had two young dental assistants in there, and they were just kind of watching. One of them couldn't even control her expression. I won't say what he said, but it was very inappropriate. I ignored it. I started the sedation. We started the procedure. And the tricky part was the human in me was so angry. There was so much anger there. How could this guy just say this and violate our professional relationship like that? What gave him the right to come in there? I don't go into a doctor's office and say whatever I want. What gave him the right to do that? And also it embarrassed me, if I'm being completely honest, in front of my assistants.
Absolutely.
And I said nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a little bit of guilt there, little anger, and all the while, you still need to do your absolute best to provide care to this patient as you start your procedure. So we finish up the procedure, dismiss the patient to their ride so they can go home. And afterwards, I have my assistants come in, and they're both in their early 20s. And these two assistants, one's a female and one's a male. And I said, "Look, I'll never be upset if you stand up for yourself and say, 'Hey, that's not appropriate. That's not right.' Even if it means that money walks out the door. I don't care. I want to make sure that you guys feel protected at this office."
Wow.
Would you do things differently if you had to do it over again?
So,
with that patient situation?
I've actually gone round and round. I mean, what can you do? There's so many things here to unpack. One, is it worth it? There's a voice in my head that's saying, "Look, we're set up. You're going to sedate him. He's probably nervous and he's just having this nervous chatter. It's not right. But what do you do here?" And, the other thing is, like, when you're new in practice, when you have these big cases, this case was unfortunately a high dollar case. And, one of the thoughts that walked through my head is, I don't want to embarrass him. That's crazy. But that's one of my thoughts. Like, legitimately, I don't want to hurt his feelings.
Yeah.
But then what happens when you have to see that patient at a follow-up? Like, how is that interaction, when you continue to manage them? Do you chart this in your note? Do you, alarm the whole team? Like, "Hey, be on the lookout for this."
Right.
Because I think about those things like down the line if I have to see them again. Yeah.
For him, there is no evidence that he would have even thought anything was wrong. He just goes about his normal way. It's not that it makes him, we try not to have a female only in there with him. We always try to do the buddy system.
Absolutely.
And I posed this question, that same question. I was part of a Harvard surgical leadership program. And we have a women's surgeon group on the side here. And I posed this, told the scenario. And shockingly, my scenario was the most G-rated out of the stories that I heard from some of these women.
Yeah.
And it's not just in America, it's in Italy, it's in the UK, it's all over the world.
In Europe, this is the mainstream. That's not, don't even go there.
Yeah.
Let's not even go there, right?
But I want to say that you're absolutely right. And it was your practice. It was your decision. You read the room, you made your decision. And, if you are comfortable with this, that's perfect. It's a great resolution. The problem that I see is when those things happen in dental school, and they do happen. They do happen to female dental students. And then, as a matter of fact, we started in many schools, including UConn, we started developing policies to protect students from this, because when the student is exposed to a behavior like this, and again, they are conflicted because on one hand, they want to complete the case for credit,
Yes,
right?
of course.
And on the other hand,
They're trying to get out of there.
exactly. And on the other hand, they feel very uncomfortable and they don't know if this continues outside the school. So they are even more vulnerable. So it's such a complicated situation when it happens at the school level.
And to Steph's point,
Yes.
people are always watching you.
Yeah.
And there have been so many times in any patient interaction, I'll walk out and go, oh my gosh, I wish I had not done what I just did.
Yeah.
And to have a sit down with your staff and say, this is what happened. Quite frankly, I may have done something different if I had to do it over again. Not expecting a perfect decision when something like that happens. That's such an unusual thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's great to cast light on some of those issues.
Oh, absolutely. Transparency.
It's the transparency and it's also the discussion point. And I also talked about this situation with a group of female dentists in my area. And I was just trying to, I don't know. And it wasn't, I didn't want to suffer in silence. If I'm being completely honest, this hurt.
Yeah.
I don't know why comments like that have to hurt, but they do. And I think it hurts my ego. And it's frustrating because I don't know why it always has to come back to that point. I don't know where that's just kind of those comments, the sexually suggestive comments. Why does that have to be the end all? Why is that the last little zinger that, you fall kind of subject to? And I guess my frustration is that more women don't kind of speak up about it. And I was actually inspired to start talking to some of these different groups because of some of the books I've been reading from some female athletes and their stories.
Nice.
And so I absolutely love it and am encouraged by some of the women who kind of refuse to remain silent.
And I would say, Steph, it's super important for women to hear these stories, and it's super important for men to hear these stories as well.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. We always have these conversations in the dental school when we bring gender issues and equity issues and harassment discussions. They used to be perceived as women's problems. They are not women's problems. They are society problems. And if men are not in the conversation, we will never change the situation. I really appreciate the fact that you share this story. This is huge and amazing the way that you transparently share the story with your staff and you allow them the space to, if this happen again, how to behave and how to react and how to feel free to express themselves. That's great.
Thanks.
Yeah. So speaking of frustrations, we've talked a little bit about that. We've talked about communication. We've talked about burnout, all of these things. My story kind of encompasses a little bit of all of those. So I have this one particular case where I did a consultation with a patient who needed an upper denture. They needed some teeth extracted on the lower. They had some perio-involved teeth, terminal dentition, and they came in. They were by themselves the first go around. It was a female, and I did the treatment plan, and we were going to just start with the upper. But I made sure that I shared that sooner than later, those lower teeth were going to be coming out as well, right? So I took care of the uppers, delivered the denture. It was an immediate denture, right? And then I did my post-ops with the patient. I saw them, did adjustments, blah, blah, blah. So then a month or two goes by, and then the patient comes back. This time she's accompanied by a family member. And so I was just like, oh, okay. And I am like crazy when it comes down to documentation. At least, I really, really try. And so in this particular instance, I'm super duper excited that we had some documentation on file. So, and what I mean by documentation is like, if I present a treatment plan to the patient and they verbally decline, I still present that treatment and we scan it in. Like even if we change it and give them something else on paper because the patients want to see something different on paper. And if they accept that treatment plan, I still scan in or make sure that it's recorded what I offered the first go round. So this was all on file, right? So they were just like, no, someone told them that I was going to be doing the extractions for free. And I was just like, I have no idea Who said that?
I'm going to pause you right there.
It was the awkwardest, listen, I was frustrated because, so all of this happened I was actually seeing other patients, right, in the office, right? And so then my manager comes to me and is like, okay, doc, I need to kind of pull you in the office for this. And I was just like, okay, what's going on? And so I kind of remember the situation. I go back through the computer and I'm just like, well, the treatment plan for those teeth are right here. Long story short, I did end up doing those teeth. I did end up extracting those teeth for free. And I know the world is probably going to slaughter me about this, but what I had to think about was what was more important in the situation. And here I am,
It's tough.
I'm like, the teeth were waving in the wind. It was literally like, it was one of those situations where it's like, it's not going to take me any time. The patient could literally just twist.
Even I could have taken them out.
You could have, but the patient could have taken them out herself. And I did decide, I said, you know what? I'm not going to argue back and forth because I'm really solution oriented. And if we would have just continued going back and forth, then a whole bunch of other things I feel could have happened because it did get really heated in the four walls of that office, right? So I ended up doing those extractions for free, but I made sure that the patient signed documentation that I had given them the treatment plan. The person, like I went into my office and I typed up, a different type of consent. I made sure that I explained the situation and that all parties involved, like the family member, the patient, myself, the manager, we all signed on the dotted line at that time. And so that's my sticky situation. And as a new dentist,
so tough.
Yeah, it was really, really tough because for me, it was like, yes, I could have made money off of those, but at the same time, I also have a reputation to uphold. This person who they named, who was not there, I wasn't in on that conversation, whether it happened, whether it didn't. But at the same time, I was like, I'm not going to argue about this. So like, let's just get it done. You have the denture already. Let's just deliver it. And then it was over with from there.
It's good that it was only the 6 teeth and not an implant supported over denture.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
No. If it was that, then that would have been a completely different story. Yeah. And then, I didn't add that we were a startup. So it was literally within the first month or two of the office being open. And so then on the one hand, I'm like, all right, I'm like, I really need to produce at this time. But then on the other hand, it's just like, I don't want to be the doctor who was a jerk. And, there was somebody who made this promise and then I don't deliver on the promise because it doesn't fall on that individual. It falls on me. You know what I mean?
I love what you're talking about as far as you're seeing the forest.
Yeah.
You're not just seeing the individual trees here.
Yeah.
And even though you may not have had the production from those 6 anterior teeth, you may have won 5 more cases off of a positive, words from those patients.
And Steph, it makes me think about, do you want to be right or do you want to be in a relationship?
Yeah.
And from a state board regulatory hat standpoint,
Putting
you
that
would
hat
be
on.
amazed the number of complaints that are filed over a $100 bill.
I'm sure.
Right.
A consult fee or something else. And the time out of your practice, your interaction with malpractice carriers, your own mental well-being, leaving some money on the table.
I was going to say, your old partner in practice, Ronnie, used to say that.
He would
Don't
say
be afraid
that.
to leave money on the table.
He would say, leave money on the table.
Wisest words.
There are times
Ronnie
where
Rogers.
other dentists have thrown me under the bus clinically and unnecessarily, and I have given back money with a signed release after interacting with my malpractice carrier.
Yep, I do that too.
And just say, I did this stuff. There's nothing wrong with this. But you have another clinician say something and that throws everything out of line. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it wears you down. And that's where talking to other people, having connections, saying, hey, how would you handle this situation? That's why I'm glad you guys are doing this sticky situation podcast, so people will hear this kind of stuff.
And I think Dr. Wright's story is amazing because it's really, exactly you hit the logistics and the economics of the practice.
Yeah. Well, so we have a little thing that we like to do here on the show where we ask a question and then we go around with rapid fire answers. Is that okay with everybody?
Love it.
Okay, so I want you guys to go around really quickly and complete this sentence. So the best thing about dentistry is, Steph.
Freedom.
The mandible.
Dr. Effie?
Protecting oral health.
There you go. All right. So
There you go. The academician.
awesome. So what?
My answer was terrible.
The mandible.
Answer was
But that's the
awful.
first thing that came to my
Yeah, the
head.
mandible.
The mandible. I love the
But I
mandible.
do
don't
love.
like the
I
maxilla.
love freedom. That's something.
Freedom
that's
is
probably
good,
something
yeah.
for another time. Actually.
I was gonna say I could go off on that so much. There's so much freedom with
Right?
dentistry, and I love it.
Okay. So more quick fire. Bobby, you're gonna start. What's the first word you think of when you hear dentist?
Freedom.
Stop. You
I just took your-
strike it.
That's the thing.
Take it out of the reel or whatever this. Stop it. No.
All right. So what about yours? Y'all have had 2 seconds to think of it now, so you should have an answer.
Connection.
Connection. Dr. Effie.
Fun people.
Yes.
I was gonna say type A. So what's the first word when you think of when you hear SmileCon?
Amazing.
Fun.
Smile.
I said
Smile,
fun too.
smile.
Smile. Nice. Okay. What's the first word you think of when you hear candy?
Hershey's.
Carries.
Oh, caries too. Or, something bad.
I was gonna say sweet.
Dental caries.
You guys are not chocolate lovers.
Oh my gosh.
I'm an oral surgeon.
All right, last one. Let's see. What's the first word you think of when you hear sticky situation? Steph, you go.
Opportunity.
Challenging.
Dr. Effie.
Resilience.
Resilience. I was going to say awkward moments.
On the next Dental Soundbites.
Difficult conversations in and out of the dental office. We're talking about the importance of mastering communication skills and how to tackle tough conversations. Get the tools and the knowledge to communicate effectively with your team, learn from crucial conversations, and set your practice up for success. Well, you guys, this has been such an amazing episode. It has been great to have you all here. We want to just say thank you so much for your time and for all of the wisdom and the stories that you shared with all of our listeners and with yours as well. So can you tell everyone where they can find you all? Go ahead and plug all of your channels, your show. Let everybody know where they can get more of this.
YouTube at Between Two Teeth. Our Instagram is at B2 teeth. We have to say from Bobby and I, Dr. Wright, Dr. Effie, thank you guys so much for doing what you do. It is tough. We know how tough it is to show up every day and do things just like you guys do. You got to be on. You got to have a smile. It doesn't matter what kind of day you had.
Do my hair.
You got to get that coffee.
We love it.
Thank you guys.
We love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So if you like this episode, go ahead and share it with a friend or a colleague.
Subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening so you can get the latest episodes. You can also rate and review and follow us on social media.
Thank you for joining us. Dental Soundbites is an American Dental Association podcast. You can also find this show, resources, and more on the ADA member app and online at ada.org/podcast.